Hello everyone, and welcome to round 9 of the 2018 Candidates Tournament. Here we have a very interesting game, and it's between Fabiano Caruana, the current leader of the tournament, and Liren. Both Fabiano and Ding haven't lost a single game yet, and it's interesting what happens in this game, as this game lasted well over 6 hours. I think it was over 6.5 hours. And some of the decisions the players made in such late stages of the game, it really shows you that it's not enough to be a 2800 player. It's not enough to be an elite grandmaster. It also takes like extreme stamina to really play a game correctly for the entire game. But before we start, as usual, thanks to Nikki, we do have some photos. So here we have Ding and Fabiano before the first move. If anyone knows who the gentleman is that's making the first move for Fabiano, do share in the comments. I'm pretty sure it's a well-known person. I just have no idea who he is. It's interesting how Fabiano stares at him as if he's going to make a different move than the one they agreed upon. And we have here a photo of the opening, nothing to it. And I do also have one other photo, but we'll wait for that one until move 13. So d4 by Fabiano, although that other gentleman played it. Knight to f6, we have c4, e6, and now g3, the Catalan. We have bishop to b4 check, bishop to d2, and bishop back to e7. Bishop to g2, d5, we have knight to f3, castles, Fabiano castles as well, and c6. Queen to b3, b6 now, knight to c3, and bishop to a6. C captures on d5, C captures on d5, and knight to e5. And here, black, as usual, brings the bishop back to b7, as it's very hard to develop your pieces unless you do this. You can't go knight to c6, this knight is covering the c6 square. You can't go here because knight to c6 attacks the queen and the bishop, and already white is getting a lot of edge here. So after knight e5, bishop back to b7, rook f to c1, and knight to c6. And here Fabiano plays knight captures on d5. It's not really a tactic or anything. This knight is simply attacked twice now from the rook and from the knight here. And we do have actually a photo of this knight captures on d5 move. A very nice photo from above. So here you have it, knight captures on d5. And here you can't capture the knight. If you play e captures, then simply knight captures on c6, bishop captures, rook captures, and white won a pawn, and is of course better here. So after knight captures on d5, knight captures on d4, attacking the queen. We have knight captures on e7, queen captures on e7, and now queen to c4. Defending the e2 pawn and also attacking the knight on d4. Here bishop captures on g2. Queen captures on d4, and now rook f to d8 first, attacking the queen and the bishop behind the queen, queen to f4, defending the bishop, and now bishop back to b7. Here bishop to b4, attacking the queen. That's why it was very important to play rook f to d8 and not rook a to d8, because now this bishop would also skewer that rook behind. So queen to e8, and now we have rook to c7. And if you look at this position, it seems like black is simply lost. It's only move 19, and the f7 pawn is under attack. There's no way to defend the f7 pawn. No piece can come into the defense of the f7 pawn, but Ding Liren willingly went into this, and he found a very nice defense. Here Ding Liren played knight to d5. He simply gives up the f7 pawn, but white has to capture it immediately, and he has to do it with the queen, because the queen is attacked, the bishop is attacked, and the rook also on c7 is attacked by the knight here. So queen captures, rook captures, and now you can't grab the bishop on b4 because your own bishop on b7 is under attack, so first you have to move it. Bishop to a6, you attack the e2 pawn. This was all in Ding Liren's calculations. Bishop to a3, getting the bishop to safety, and now bishop captures on e2. And black defended, the material is equal, all is well. Okay, maybe white is a little better because there's that weak e6 pawn, but other than that, a nice defensive idea by Ding Liren. Rook to c1, bishop to h5 now, kicking away the rook, rook to b7, and now bishop to e8. We have king to g2, a5, h4, offering an exchange of rooks, rook captures, and now g4. b5, b3, making room for the bishop, b4, bishop to b2, and now a4. h5, rook to a8, king to g3, king to f8, and knight to f3 now, maybe with ideas of knight to g5 going for that h7 pawn. Bishop to d7, defending the e6 pawn so the knight can't come to g5 with tempo. Rook to c4, we have king to g7, king to g8 to defend the h7 pawn again. Knight to e5 attacking the bishop. Bishop moves to b5, as this does create the well-known barrier for this knight. So rook to c5 attacking the bishop. Bishop now again moves. We have knight to c4 and bishop to d7. Knight back to e5, bishop back to e8, and now bishop to d4. Caruana isn't interesting in repeating moves and offering a draw. King to f8 and now f3. King to e7, we have king to h4, now king back to f8. King to g5, now h6, pushing the king back. King to h4, and now king to g8. So how can white make progress here? King to g3, king to h7, and now knight to d3. We have king back to g8, now rook to c1, a captures on b3, a captures on b3, and king to h7. Here, knight to c5, again attacking the e6 pawn, bishop to f7 defending, and now rook to e1 with a double attack on the pawn. Here, Ding goes for knight to e7, and you could capture the e6 pawn, but it's very complicated. If you capture it, then black has rook to e8, and you will have some problems here. This knight, if it ever moves, then rook to f5 check picks up the rook on e1. But after bishop to f2, it seems like you could have grabbed this pawn. Knight to c6, simply knight moves, you exchange rooks, and you're up a pawn. But those are opposite color bishops. It's hard to say if you can actually make some progress here. But okay, after knight to e7, Fabiano goes for bishop to b2, and not allowing that tempo on the bishop. Knight to c6, and now f4. Rook to a2, attacking the bishop. We have knight to d3, defending it. e5, f captures on e5, bishop captures on b3 now, and e6. Rook to a7, preventing the pawn to be pushed to e7. We have knight to c5 and bishop to c4. Knight to d7, bishop to b5 here, and this is actually the moment where Fabiano could have gone for some real edge, but he had to find the move rook to e4 here. And after rook to e4, it's an extremely dangerous move because it threatens rook to f4. And it's very hard to find anything that stops this. Even if black goes rook to a2 to pick up the bishop, you can simply ignore this. Still rook to f4, and black is lost. Whatever you do, you're either gonna get rook to f8, you're either gonna get knight check, followed by knight to g6, rook to f8 check, and then rook to h8 checkmate. But there's no real reason there's no real way for black to stop this. If you capture it, then again knight to f8, king moves, knight to g6 now, and whatever you play, simply rook to f8 followed by rook to. I mean, there's really nothing to play here. You can simply just check, king h7, and rook to h8. This is checkmate. But here, after this bishop to b5 move, Fabiano didn't find this. He went for the immediate knight to f8 check, king to g8, and now knight to g6. So, okay, it's a similar position, but this rook still has to find a way to the f file. And here, Liren played knight to e7, and knight to e7 is a mistake because it allows rook to a1, and Fabiano finds this rook to a1 move. Now, you can't grab the rook, because if you grab the rook, first knight captures on e7 with check. King moves, knight to g6 back, check again. There's a wall here, the king can't approach the knight. King moves, and simply bishop captures rook on a1, winning a full piece. So after rook to a1, Liren plays knight to c6, defending the rook, and here we have rook to d1. King to h7, and now again missing a great opportunity here. Now rook to d5 was played, although a better idea was rook to d2 again, followed by rook to f2, going for that f-file ideas. But okay, rook to d5, attacking the bishop, and here bishop to a4 was played. And again, here Fabiano does have the opportunity of going rook to f5, again winning this f-file, and it doesn't matter what black plays, it's simply too powerful a position for white. After bishop, for example, bishop to c2, simply again knight to f8 check. King moves, but now you get rook to f2 first, attacking the bishop, and you simply lose this piece. After bishop moves, knight to g6 again, and it's all over. Rook f8 is again a great threat. After you stop this, then comes rook to f7, and there is no defense against rook captures on g7. Whatever you play, simply rook captures, and this is checkmate. But okay, after bishop to a4, Fabiano played king to f4, and now he really gave Ding Liren an excellent drawing opportunity. Bishop to c2 immediately. Now rook to c5 was played, attacking the bishop and the knight, but bishop back to a4. And here Fabiano pushed g5. Again, he didn't go for this opportunity. H captures on g5, which was weird for Ding Liren because now rook captures on g5, and now this rook on g5 is on a very active square, unlike for on c5, it wasn't a very active square for the rook. Here knight to d8 was played, and here again Ding Liren gives Fabiano an opportunity to to win the game. And this variation is basically the reason for the title of this video, as the h pawn becomes a passed pawn, but again Fabiano misses this. So it's very interesting. 6.5 hours into the game, and I mean, it's not a tactic Fabiano would miss. The knight to f8 check, and now whatever black plays, it's simply lost. If you go king to g8, now h6 wins the game. The pawn is pinned, you don't really have a move here. If you capture the knight simply goes even further, h7, and there's no way to prevent it. Even knight captures on e6, checking the king and forking the rook doesn't make a difference. Simply move the king, and there's no stopping this pawn. Knight captures, simply queen comes into the game, king to e7, and now you don't even capture because of knight to f7, he can block, but queen to b8, and the pieces are so far apart that the queen will pick up one piece by another. Another idea after this knight to f8 check, if you go king to h8, if you don't even go bother yourself with picking up the knight, then simply h6. Now the pawn is pinned from the bishop on b2, and now black really doesn't have a move. This is simply falling apart. This would be even faster. And another thing, after knight to f8 check, and probably this is why Caruana didn't play it, he maybe thought that king to h6 was actually perfectly fine, but he may have missed that king to g4 was now winning, as the h pawn is protected, and you're threatening rook to g6 checkmate, and after bishop to d1 check, king h4, and now bishop to c2, preventing checkmate. It only seems that you're preventing checkmate, because rook to g6 check, you simply give up the rook, bishop captures, and now bishop to c1, and this is a beautiful checkmate with the bishop and the pawn and the king here, as the knight is covering the h7 square. So Fabiano missed this. He played rook to e5, now preparing to push the pawn, but now simply bishop to e8, preparing to capture that knight. E7 was played, and here a draw was agreed upon. So yeah, this was move 67, and a lot of opportunities for both Ding to draw the game even faster, and I think Fabiano had at least four opportunities where he could have gotten a clear win. But you know, that's what a 6.5 hour game will do to you. They drew because now knight to c6, and the same idea doesn't work like before. For example, knight to f8 check, king moves, and now even rook to g5. Preparing h6 doesn't work because now you simply capture it, and after h6 now there's a problem. The problem is knight to d5, and this is why it doesn't work. Now if you move the king, simply knight to c3, blocking this bishop, so the pawn will no longer become pinned. And if you capture it, rook captures, then comes king captures on f8, and now h7 doesn't work, because in that previous variation there was, of course, the rook was on g5, so black couldn't execute g5, but here simply g5 check. Rook captures, and now rook captures on h7, and black is actually up a pawn here, but it doesn't matter, it's a draw anyway. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. After this e7 move and a lot of missed opportunities for Fabiano Caruana, the game was drawn, And I'm always scared I'm gonna forget to show you the standings. These are the standings after round 9 of the 2018 Candidates Tournament. And today is a rest day, so there won't be any games today. A nice opportunity to cover a nice Tal versus Botvinnik game. So Caruana in first place with 6 out of 9 points, with an envious rating performance of 2910. That's really a lot after 9 rounds. Mamedyarov in second place with half a point behind him, and it's going to be probably a game that could decide first place, although it's too early to tell when Mamedyarov will face Caruana. Grishchuk with 5 points, so even Grishchuk could decide a lot of things here. Karakin with 4.5, and with those 2 wins, he really got in the middle of the board. Ding Liren with 4.5 points, and you know, a lot of people were saying that after they saw Caruana's position, they thought Caruana would find the win there, and that he would eliminate Ding Liren's chances of pulling a Giri, but it seems Ding Liren is all drawn. So not a single loss yet, but not a single win. All games drawn, 4.5 points out of 9. Then we have Vladimir Kramnik, who could have easily been in second or third place, but decided to play like a pirate in the second half of the tournament. Then Levon Aronyan and Wesley So in last place. So yeah, definitely not the standings you would expect after round 9, but you know, it is as it is. So yeah, a lot more rounds to go, and you know, a lot more things can happen. Pretty much anyone can win. Maybe not anyone, but you know, it could happen. So yeah, those are the standings. I do hope you enjoyed that as well as the game. I would like to thank John Viau, Dustin Gionatapur, and Paolo Boncini for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. I would also like to thank Nikki Riga for her photos for each round. I will put all the links to her social media pages in the description below. So if you enjoy chess photography, feel free to follow her and check out some of her work. And yeah, as usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon.